Hey everybody, welcome back and happy November to all. I hope you're doing well out there. I am still a bit fuzzy brained after a great Halloween. I hope you had a good Halloween too. I had a few too many cookies last night and I stayed up a little late watching horror films as I love to do on Halloween. So I am a bit groggy headed here. And I'll be honest with you that this particular video, the Metaskills of Psychedelics, is something I'm very excited about. I feel like it's a very important piece of information, but I've really struggled to properly frame or introduce the ideas in this video well. So I decided to just kind of pop on the camera here and kind of work it out as we go here. So I'm kind of figuring this out as we film. So if I ramble a little bit, please do forgive me. I'm doing my best to try to be clear and concise, but I wanted to just kind of set this up and I'm going to offer you a few frames to try to understand what we're about to talk about here before we go ahead and get into the content. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just kind of dive into the intro here. Let me introduce a few ideas about why this is important, and then we'll get into the meta skills of psychedelics. So as I said in the intro here, this is something that I'm kind of struggling to present to you properly in terms of why this is so important and how it's useful to you. So the basic idea is that I've observed over the years of my time using psychedelics and my time exploring personal development work, personal healing, self-guided therapy, this kind of a thing, that there are certain factors that contribute, certain parallel skills and certain mindsets and angles that really contribute to whether or not our experiences with psychedelics are successful in terms of being transformative, safe, healing, profound, etc., right? Getting good results out of them versus not. And so I want to start to present to you what may be kind of outside the domain of what psychedelics can influence or control, that actually have an influence or a control on your psychedelic experiences and on your life in general. So this points to a few ideas that I want to kind of list off here because I don't really have a better way to describe them to you. So hopefully I don't lose you in the intro here before we get to the content. One of the major things I hope you get from this video is the idea of levels or nested layers or different levels to a foundation of an experience. And we're talking about meta skills. So one way I want to just kind of define what it means to be meta really quick, because this is kind of a term that you may have heard but might be a little ambiguous or abstract to you. So let me try to clarify what I mean when I'm saying meta skill here. So a meta skill, anything meta means about or around or above or, a parent layer to something that is sub to it, right? So the meta is above to something below, right? So we're talking about the skills above or about psychedelics that influence your psychedelic experience, that psychedelics don't necessarily influence back to the same degree, right? So one of the important things I think that we always need to be asking and thinking about is there a more foundational reality than whatever it is I'm focused on? So when we're working on an issue here, if we're working on, a personal growth issue, for example, we want to be asking, what is the sponsoring reality that's deeper or more real or more true that controls what it is that I'm focusing on, right? If I'm dealing with procrastination, what are the deeper experiences, skills, lack of skills, assumptions, belief systems that are meta to procrastination that either hold it in place or empower me to change it? I hope this is starting to make sense. This is kind of an abstract idea here, but going meta means to go bigger, means to go beyond, means to go deeper, means to go more, another level out, if you will, where we gain more control over whatever the content is inside of that meta attention, right? So meta skills, these are skills that are around and about psychedelics. Now, the thing to understand is you can kind of think of meta in terms of framing and a picture, right? So a meta skill would be a skill around psychedelics, right? So that would be like a frame around a picture if the picture were psychedelics, if you can follow me here. And so when something is meta, it means that we can control whatever's inside of it. So if I pick up a frame, the picture moves when I pick up the frame too, assuming the picture is in the frame, right? So, but if I mess with the picture, I'm not necessarily messing with the frame per se, right? So something that is meta is controlling to whatever is inside of it, is kind of what I want you to start to see. And I want you to start to think of deeper foundational realities and what is kind of the ultimate foundation, or what's more foundational at each level. So I'm starting to invite you to think in terms of levels, to think in terms of foundational reality, to start to think in terms of content and what is meta to content. And the reason I bring all this up is because if you're new to psychedelics, and let's say it's going really well and you've had some amazing, profound, beautiful, inspiring, life-changing experiences, maybe you're feeling, what I notice, I'll just put it this way, is that a lot of people end up being very enthusiastic, very passionate, very excited, and almost zealous. They become zealots about psychedelics, and they start to assume that this is the deepest thing, and that the kind of state of consciousness that you experience and touch on psychedelics cannot be influenced by anything else. It is the deepest. And so I want to start to present to you what I've observed are some important, crucial skills, again, that psychedelics don't influence as much. In other words, these places where the psychedelic experience doesn't really penetrate in and translate into lasting change, but yet these experiences or these levels or these skills do translate into successful work with psychedelics. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I do want to say a couple other points here. Again, this is a little disjointed because I'm just kind of off the cuff creating this intro here. But I want to say that I do consider psychedelics, using them successfully, a skill. In the same way that, learning how to do any sort of behavioral thing is a skill. Learning, people skills is a skill. Learning how to, get good at, writing or thinking. These are skills, right? And so there are internal soft skills we have that are just as, prevalent as external skills. And I want you to start to see these. I want you to start to understand that using psychedelics successfully as a skill, yes, in a certain sense, it's kind of, you can just passively consume psychedelics and maybe you'll have a good experience, but there are skills you can have in place that improve your ability to have a safer time, to have a happier time, to have a more healing, insightful experience. And so this is what I want to start to talk about on the channel and really encourage as a culture. If you're going to work with psychedelics, if you're going to do this, you want to get good at it so that you have a better experience with them and it brings you more towards what it is that you want for yourself in your life, right? So with all that being said, I guess we're kind of ready to go ahead and dive in here. Again, apologies for the kind of rambly intro here, but I'm doing my best to try to make clear something that I kind of only have these little like bullet points here and haven't really been able to articulate that well. With that being said, I'm very clear about what the meta skills are, so I'll be able to describe these in good detail. Before we get into it, I do want to say really quick that this is in my model that I've created here. So I put together a model trying to describe, it's not even really a model in terms of something innovative. I was just trying to pull together all the information that we already know about the different approaches to psychedelic therapy and dosage and where your attention goes and what kind of intervention to do. Because I started to see pathways and really how these things connect. But I noticed I would get a lot of questions for people who are confused about how to do all this work. So I put together this model that to me is a good descriptor, a good thing I can point to and be like, this is kind of how these things all fit together. And in my opinion, the meta skills that I'm about to share with you are part of this model. So I'll show you here in a picture. And these meta skills are meta, again, to the entire process of working with psychedelics. So they are beyond and about and shape the entire process from preparation to journeying and dosing to integration afterwards. These apply every step along the way here. So without further ado, hopefully I'm making sense here. Let's go ahead and just get into the meta skills so I can describe to you how and why these impact your success with psychedelics. The first meta skill, and possibly the most important on the list, in terms of life skills anyways, in terms of things that everybody should kind of have under their belt, yet so few people do. It's really alarming and sad to me how many people struggle with this, is learning how to quality control your own thinking. Now, when it comes to every area of your life, right? Your mental health, your general well-being, your ability to navigate being online and the information overload we all live inside of these days, your ability to know how to prioritize tasks and get things done, etc., etc., etc. Knowing how to quality control your thinking is huge and massive. And like I said, I think it's sadly massively lacking in our current world around us. Now, there's a lot that goes into quality controlling your thinking, and I'll be making a whole video on that soon. And quite frankly, I could probably make a whole entire course, and I might, just on different angles and perspectives on how to quality control your thinking. But the basic thing that I kind of want to say about it is what do I mean when I say quality controlling your thinking is learning how to not take the thoughts that move through your own mind literally as your whole truth, as the thing that you must believe because you thought it. Learning how to not take them personally. Sometimes the thoughts that move through your head aren't about you. They are pieces of conditioning that have been put inside of you by society, by others, by toxic personalities around you, by social media, right? Learning how to not take it literally, not take it personally, learning how to challenge conclusions and beliefs and emotions and thoughts that move through your own mind, to examine them more closely and be like, is this accurate? Is this true? Is this something I want to subscribe to as being accurate or true? Is this, in other words, being self-honest and scrutinizing your own thinking, recognizing that, again, if you sit down to meditate, most people don't meditate because they can't turn their thoughts off, right? So you recognize the moment you sit your ass down and try not to think that your mind is going to auto-think, right? So your mind is spitting out thoughts and conclusions and beliefs and emotions and fears and things to focus on all the time. Now, how much of that is stuff that you should take seriously? How much of that is stuff you should take personally? How much of that is accurate thinking, is really well-honed, precise thinking? This is something to start to learn how to do and figure out for yourself. In the context of psychedelics, this becomes crucially important. And here's why. In general, psychedelics kind of create broad, generalized, distorted, big thinking. Right? It tends to create expansive thinking. It tends to create, half-truths. So one of the unfortunate things that happens with psychedelics is that along with the moments of profound insight, of wisdom, of bliss and joy, of healing, of breakthrough states or spiritual experiences, or all these great, really useful, important, valuable moments, there will also be kind of fool's gold moments of bad conclusions, of flawed logic, of emotional thinking coming from a regressed part of you that you didn't realize you regressed into, of kind of weird cosmic half-truths that kind of come out just as kind of junk floating through your mind, that if you don't know how to question and challenge and not take seriously, you might latch onto as some sort of profound personal truth, and that can really mess you up. That can really set you back. You could be operating on a flawed piece of information for your operating system moving forward based on something you had in a psychedelic experience if you're not quality controlling your thinking. So last thing I'll say about this is just a quick mention of when to quality control your thinking. So obviously you can do this in Journey. While you're journeying, you can kind of reflect on things that come up and look at them and be like, do I really believe that? Do I really want to hold on to that? Do I really like resonate with that? Is that an important thing? Where is this coming from inside of me? This kind of a thing. You can start to challenge it in the moment. But another thing you can do is just allow the thoughts to come up in Journey and not really be so stringent in the moment, but just allow yourself to have your own experience, but then take that integration period afterwards to really reflect and be like, is that clear thinking? Is that really true? Does that make logical sense? Does that make, where is that coming from in me? Is that something I find useful? If I apply this idea in my life, is it really going to better my life? What are the drawbacks to this idea? What are the drawbacks to believing this? Et cetera, et cetera. And so this is something that most people don't know how to do and don't do. And so we have a society of people who get into all kinds of trouble here because they take whatever floats through their own mind, again, without realizing that the mind auto thinks and auto generates content all the time as a stream of thinking. People will take their own, flawed logic, if you will, their own, emotionally charged, regressed, triggered thinking as if it is their whole truth, as if it's literally true, as if it's personally true, and never challenge the ideas floating through our own head. So this is an crucially important life skill. Again, that is meta to your success with psychedelics, because if you are not able to quality control your thinking, then you're going to be on a much wilder ride and subject to whatever weird pattern of thought your psychedelic infused brain decided to kind of spit out, right? And so then you're just on the ride. You are subject to, kind of a victim of, if you will, a little bit, thinking that may not be coming from any sort of really clear, coherent place inside yourself. So this is an important life skill, again, that a lot of people lack. And so quality controlling your thinking is one of these crucial meta skills that informs psychedelics. But, the other way around, psychedelics don't necessarily, they can teach you how to quality control your thinking. You can have a moment of breakthrough with a psychedelic, but it's not a guarantee. You could just as easily do psychedelics for years and never be any better at quality controlling your thinking. So this is the first one. It's very, very important. The next one, which I just did a recent video on, I will try to leave a link below here. You can also find it on my channel, is self-regulation. So I just made a recent video about 10 different self-regulation skills that you can apply to start to soothe yourself. But the basic idea of self-regulation is it's your ability to calm your emotional state, your nervous system dysregulation, whenever you get upset, triggered, challenged, stressed, overwhelmed, this kind of a thing. It's the skill of coming back to center in yourself, coming back to balance, coming back to calm, coming back to clarity, coming back to well-being, coming back to feeling safe, coming back to feeling easy. And this is something that, again, many people, I dare I say most in our culture, in our society, in our modern world, we're never taught, just simply don't know how to do, and there are a lot of different techniques out there. Again, I made a video, so go check it out in terms of different ways that you can learn how to self-regulate. But this is another one that, again, psychedelics don't necessarily teach you self-regulation in and of themselves. Yes, there will be moments where you take a psychedelic and you have a self-regulation experience kind of automatically or intuitively, but you can't rely on them to do this, because a lot of times what happens is the opposite. They will dysregulate you. They will take you way out of your normal experience. They will, trigger, maybe a lot of energy or a lot of kind of fight or flight energy you didn't know was stored inside your body, or a lot of dissociation, or what have you. All kinds of states can come up and move through you when you're on psychedelics, right? And so knowing how to self-regulate. Again, this is a meta skill. This is something that psychedelics can kind of show you, but learning how to do outside of psychedelics gives you a lot more control in journey to come back to center, come back to balance. And also is useful, again, as a life skill in general. If you know how to untrigger yourself, if you know how to come back to calm, come back to easy, come back to feeling good over and over and over, in my personal view, that's the foundation you want to have before you're doing any therapeutic work, self-healing work, personal growth work, because all of those things will trigger you and will be, challenging. And so that's really the first thing you need. You need to know how to bring yourself back to calm and safe. Now, to keep it really fucking real with you guys, when I look around in our society, when I even look at myself when I was younger, before I knew how to self-regulate, what we mostly see are people who try to self-soothe with forms of consumption, if we're going to be really honest about it, but in general, via kind of coping mechanisms that generally aren't healthy. Often this is venting with other people socially, which impacts your relationships in a negative way, or could. This might be, any sort of addiction. So shopping, internet, porn, food, alcohol, drugs, what have you, video games. Let me see what else. Just about any coping mechanism that people kind of habitually default to feel good, to let go, to de-stress. Generally, these fall under poor attempts to self-regulate. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I don't want to demonize these things because I've done them. I still do them on occasion. I get it. But in general, we want to move it out of this kind of reaching and grasping for something external, right? And out of, attempting to get the fix that's going to make you feel good, which for most of these things, it's pretty inconsistent, and really bring that into something that's within the domain of our control, that we can do whenever we need to, because sometimes you can't go play a video game to self-regulate when you're out and about your day and something stressful happens, right? So learning how to self-regulate is a crucial core life skill that translates across the board as being super valuable and helpful, and also becomes crucially important inside a psychedelic experience when something gets too intense, when something gets too heavy, too sad, frightening, confusing. Knowing how to soothe yourself and bring yourself back to center becomes crucial. So again, this is another one of those meta skills that shapes every part of your experience. It shapes how you are between journeys. It shapes your preparation. It shapes, obviously, being on journey. It shapes your integration. So learn how to self-regulate. It's a crucial life skill and it really can do no wrong. And you can learn for free through my channel and on YouTube in general. So get after it. Okay, next on the list is the meta pattern. So the meta pattern is something that is kind of a bit of a jargon based on some training that I've done. It's something that I teach in the group coaching course. And essentially what it is understanding the underlying mechanics of how personal transformation is done, how to rewire your brain, how to release the charge, the trigger of whatever it was, not just through self-regulation, but through some deeper, more targeted work, and then how to rewire your brain to feel how you want to feel instead. So there is an underlying pattern. There's an underlying structure. There's an underlying set of steps that if you lead yourself through, you have a transformative therapeutic experience over and over and over. And again, this is something that transcends the psychedelic experience. So in a really good transformative moment in a psychedelic experience, the meta pattern might happen for you. You might do it unconsciously and just kind of through, playing around, accidentally stumble through the steps and have a healing experience. But we can't really rely on psychedelics to deliver that. And so this is important because not only does it influence, what happens in journey and whether we have healing in journey or not, but it also creates access to transformation and healing, in between our journeys, just in our day-to-day life. It really helps create and prime ourselves during the prep stage to do a bunch of meta pattern work to start to heal and transform the issue and really open up what's going on so that our unconscious mind is primed to really tune into it more. And it's also a crucial part of integration because this is how we rewire the brain and deeply integrate into the nervous system, into the neurology, what it is that we experience, whatever the breakthrough or peak state or resource experience that we had was, we turn that into lasting change through the meta pattern. So the meta pattern, again, is something that is an understanding of personal transformation that impacts every area of your life and transcends the psychedelic experience, but also can be used in the psychedelic experience to create really profound, deep, transformative moments. So this is something that this is the center of the bullseye of the work, as far as I'm concerned, something that I'm hugely passionate about, and something that I teach. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please check out the group coaching course, which will be in the link down below, or contact me if you want to know more about it. But yeah, knowing the meta pattern is, again, one of these meta skills that massively transforms your path with psychedelics. Without it, you're kind of just setting an intention that maybe you hope is going to be where your intention goes, taking the psychedelic, letting whatever comes up, trying to make sense of it, not knowing if that was transformative or not maybe knowing exactly how to integrate that in a lasting way, and then going through your life and hoping that that transformation you might have had, that breakthrough moment on the psychedelic sticks. Then if it doesn't, looking towards the next one and rinse and repeat the process, right? So without the meta pattern, we don't get consistency of transformation. So again, super crucial. Hit me up. But yeah, one of the meta skills in my book, that absolutely you need to know is how to get consistent transformation. Okay, the next one here might be a little bit obvious. This is one that, should be pretty self-evident here, but it bears mentioning. It bears being on the list here because it really does have a huge impact and bearing on your experience with psychedelics. And this is whatever sort of research and study you've done, particularly, I would say, in the realms of psychology, of understanding therapy, of understanding mind, but also maybe going into philosophy. So understanding, if you're reading Alan Watts, or you're reading Ram Dass, or you're reading, the Stoics, or you're reading Plato, or what have you, or you're reading about, quantum mechanics and you're, stuff like this. If you're getting inputs that really shape the way you understand yourself, your mind, your emotions, human beings, the world around you, that is going to come out in the psychedelic experience. Obviously, psychedelics kind of create new theories and generate a lot of connecting the dots in new ways that maybe we hadn't considered before. So it's a little more of a two-way street, but your study and the things you learn massively impact the kind of realizations, the kind of insights, the kind of nuances and learnings you have when you're in session. So learning and studying is a huge one here. And then also your practices as well. Do you meditate, right? Do you have some sort of other spiritual practices, whether that's yoga, for example, or breath work practices, or a mantra that you do, or anything like this, right? If you're into doing rituals and doing magic, stuff like that, all of these have an impact on what happens in a psychedelic experience, but also transcend psychedelic experiences, right? So the things that you're learning and the abilities that you're cultivating and developing in yourself come out in journey and become crucial tools. For example, meditating on psychedelics is one of the most profound, beautiful things I think you could do, period. But especially in that space, it's deep, it's beautiful, and you can learn to meditate at a depth that you didn't even know you're capable of, with the support of the psychedelic, right? So, but having that ability to meditate and again, hold your awareness and just be present and just feel and let the thoughts move through without getting attached to them or judging them. This becomes incredibly useful in journey. Again, so does yoga. If you feel like a holding pattern in your body and there's some energy that's stuck in a muscle tension pattern, if you're good at stretching, that's going to come in really handy, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of these kind of practices that we all have, that we all get from different walks of life that come in really, really handy, but again, are beyond simply being about psychedelics. Okay, another great example here, and this is one that might be a little controversial for some of you, or others of you will have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. But I think it really does deserve to be on this list of meta skills of psychedelics, is understanding spiral dynamics. So what's spiral dynamics, you might be asking? Well, spiral dynamics is a model of developmental psychology, we could say, of different stages that human beings move through in a developmental process. So there's kind of a sequence of phases we move through that are developmental stages, if you will. Now, this is true, according to spiral dynamics, both personally, but also collectively. So society or groups within societies, families, different cultures, operate at different levels of growth and stages of development. Now, this is a little controversial because some people are just critical of the idea that there are levels to development because it kind of implies, further development or superiority or something like that. Some people don't like hierarchical thinking, which this kind of implies. Some people have, pushback because they say that the model's incorrect, even though there's quite a bit of study that seems to imply that these stages are a real thing. The point why I bring this in is that we operate inside. So according to spiral dynamics, we operate inside different kind of paradigms of sets of values, different sets of beliefs, different worldviews, different things we find important at different levels of our personal development process, right? And so you can be inside a paradigm of thinking and feeling and behaving and perceiving and not be aware you're inside of that paradigm, and not be aware that there's another paradigm that you could move into if you continue to push your personal development. Now, here's the thing. These stages aren't a guarantee that you're going to move into the next one. You can be stuck in a stage for your entire life. It's also possible to regress back to earlier stages. And it's also possible to kind of be split in different parts of yourself amongst different stages and kind of have it's not always just a linear one stage thing. But often for a lot of people, there's kind of a center, an average of where you are in terms of your personal development here, that if we are blind to, we can confuse the psychedelic experience for the stage, right? Or we can confuse the stage we're in for reality or for the truth or for, the obvious, this is how human beings are, this is how nature is, this kind of a thing, right? And so we want to be self-aware of what stage of growth we're in, what level of development we're at, because this shapes how we interpret the psychedelic experience. Conversely, when you're inside the psychedelic experience, whatever happens will be interpreted again through whatever, stage we're at, whatever set of values we're operating inside of. But that whatever we experience from psychedelics doesn't necessarily guarantee that we are going to grow or progress or move forward in terms of, moving into the next value set. So this is sometimes described as the difference between maturing or waking up, or growing up or waking up. Ken Wilber has done a really good job of articulating this difference. And the thing is, you can wake up from psychedelics and have these profound awakening experiences, but still not grow up any further, right? And so this is meta 2. So that makes this meta 2 psychedelics. So it's something that shapes the way you perceive and experience your psychedelic experiences, but psychedelics aren't necessarily the thing that will shape or move you outside of the stage you're in. They could, they often do, but psychedelic experiences seem to cluster around certain developmental stages, so it can kind of steer you towards certain sets of values and worldviews and experiences, but it's not a guarantee. And so, again, this is one of these meta skills, is becoming aware of whatever paradigm of values and worldview you're operating inside of, so that you can start to work with it and understand how it operates as a filter that you're looking at the psychedelic experience that you have through. So, again, spiral dynamics for you. Okay, and last but certainly not least on our list here is understanding the evolutionary context we come up inside of that shapes everything about what we are as a human being, and understanding evolutionary psychology on a very basic level. Again, this is something that a lot of people are blind to, a lot of people aren't aware of, or don't like being aware of, because a lot of evolutionary psychology is very not flattering, to put it simply. And so this is one of those things that a lot of people don't want to look at, don't want to consider, and again, start to feel like psychedelics are this transcendent experience that's the deepest thing possible, and are totally blind to how the desires, the drives, the motivations, the needs, the fears, the issues, whatever it is we're working on as the content inside of our psychedelic experience, how that's shaped by evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology. There's a thing here where people assume that that's the deepest thing, and what they don't realize is that the foundation, the final filter that we are operating inside of for all of our experiences in our life is our body, right? Our body shapes our perception and our thoughts and our thinking and our mind. Our bodies shape our emotions. Our body shapes what meanings we make. The filter of the experience of having a human body is something, as long as you're alive, you will never be outside of that experience. You will never not have the filter of the biases that are built into the human body and have been shaped that way through, millions of years of evolution, right? And so that's always acting as a filter through which we are perceiving even the deepest, most profound, transcendent spiritual experiences we have. I really do think that. And I think that, more to the point, it's important to understand that even spirituality, even the transcendent, as we experience it as human beings, exists inside the context of the human body and the human nervous system as it's been developed through evolution over time, right? So there are, for example, with our senses, right? There are limitations to our senses. There are bandwidths of light we can't see because it wasn't evolutionarily useful for us. There are frequencies of sound we can't hear that other animals can because, again, it wasn't helpful for our survival. So there are limitations that come with this at every level, come with the body at every level that we don't realize is there, right? Until we start to become self-aware of how evolution has shaped our biology and how that's kind of this ultimate filter. And so that impacts our understanding and our experience of spirituality. That impacts our experience and understanding of ourselves and our psychology. That impacts our experience of each other and our view of the world around us and our view of the cosmos and cosmology and philosophy. All of this is shaped by the different layers of incentive and bias and perceptual vantage point that human beings have. And again, this is something that it's not always fun to look at or be aware of, but it's important to be self-aware of how evolution has shaped us and how that impacts what we experience in a psychedelic experience, so that we're not confusing our experience for something that's literally not possible. There's no way you can think and be outside your mind, right? Yeah, you can't be outside your mind. You can't be outside your perceptive faculties. You can't be outside the biases of biology, really, right? And so it's important to take that into account, because this is one of those blind spots that people think they transcend these things through psychedelics, and they don't. And because they get confused about that, it really distorts their understanding of themselves, of how to heal, of what they're working on or working through. For example, here's an obvious one. I know a lot of you watching on the channel, since I started talking about social anxiety, deal with social anxiety. And social anxiety is one of these issues that has a huge evolutionary piece as a part of it, right? Where, as part of the tribe. Historically, we evolved for hundreds of thousands of years in tribes of smaller than 150 people, where our status in the tribe was everything, because if we lost status with the tribe, we lost favor with the tribe, we would be abandoned and probably outcasted, left to fend for ourselves. And this is basically a death sentence for human beings living in nature, in brutal nature, when we're designed to be kind of tribal creatures, right? And so that's built into our body's intelligence. And our body knows at some level, hey, if I'm abandoned or the tribe doesn't like me, that equals death. So our body will send us that signal. Now, how do you think that factors into social anxiety? Of course, we're socially anxious because our body is built to be socially anxious to some degree, to care about our status in the tribe. Now, if we're not aware of that, if we don't realize that that's just a biological signal, that's part of how we're built to survive, then we can personalize that and start to look in all these places. Why am I this way? Start to dig into our history, not realizing that maybe it's just as simple as my brain has kind of got carried away with this signal of telling me that I should be concerned about, what people think around me, right? So again, evolutionary psychology is really important because it's meta to what we experience in a psychedelic experience. So I hope that makes sense. So just to summarize really quick, and then we'll kind of wrap the video here. So we've got quality controlling your thinking, learning how to challenge your own ideas and conclusions and beliefs, and not take everything that happens in your head literally or personally. We've got self-regulation skills so that you can come back to center, stay calm, feel safe. We've got understanding the meta pattern and how to get consistent transformation in yourself in and out of a psychedelic experience. We've got your studies and your practices, the things you're learning, the inputs you're taking in that help you to be a more developed person or to understand things more deeply. And then we've got spiral dynamics, understanding what stage of development you're in and what kind of sets of values and worldviews you might be carrying that you're kind of blind to, that are a blind spot for you. And finally, we've got evolutionary psychology and understanding the way that evolutionary psychology shapes the way we experience everything in our lives. So that sums up the meta skills. Again, these are things that we want to understand, work with, develop in ourselves that have a massive impact on what happens inside a psychedelic experience. So I hope that helps. I hope that's insightful. I hope that's food for thought for you. And thanks for watching. If you've gotten this far, I'm sure it's a long video, and I will have new content for you shortly. And I hope you have a beautiful day, and I hope you take care. All right.